நீங்க ஃபைனல் இயர் ஸ்டூடெண்டா? மீடியா தான் உங்க ட்ரீமா? அப்ப இன்னைக்கே பாண்டே ஸ்கூல் ஆஃப் ஜேர்னலிசத்தின் இன்டென்சிவ் 1 வீக் ப்ரோக்ராம்க்கு உங்க சீட்டை ரிசர்வ் பண்ணுங்க. ஹேண்ட்ஸ் ஆன் ட்ரைனிங்க ஜாம்போ ஆங்கிள்ட்ட இருந்து கத்துக்கோங்க. இதை பத்தி தெரிஞ்சுக்க உடனே வாட்ஸ்அப் பண்ணுங்க 7338824242.
At the outset, I have to thank you for making me a part of this event, and as was being mentioned by Annamalai-ji and also by Dr. Lalita. And I think the film which was shown just now is evidence enough that this is one of the most illustrious women colleges now in Chennai. And I must say, seeing the sequence of visuals that we had, and I must compliment the principal. You have started using luminaries one after the other, and also celebrities at the same time. So this is something which gives an education institution and an identity of its own. The faculty and the alumni, they are the two. Because I have myself been a teacher for over a quarter of a century, so I can bear that out. And therefore, as Annamalai-ji was saying, I also have to thank you that you have made this possible happen, because this exchange of thoughts would, I am sure, happen with a galaxy of bright brains sitting over here. I also feel gratified for another reason. That I asked Dr. Lalita, she said this college is affiliated to Madras University. And most of you don't know that I am an alumni of Madras University. The only difference is that I obtained my degree from Madras University nearly 10 years before this college was born. So much has changed since then. The very fact that Chennai was known as Madras at that time. And we had only one university. Now, of course, for the medical colleges, you have a different university. You have that NGR Medical. We had only one university. I think we had just about 8 or 9 government colleges. All of these, including the Pondicherry, were affiliated to one university. And then, of course, suddenly, after 1980 or mid-80s, the expansion happened all of a sudden. Private colleges, of course, professionals were not much heard of. So it gives me an added pleasure to see that now the place like Chennai, which was always known as a seat of learning, with teachers like Dr. Radhakrishnan, identified with this college, with this university. You have a college which is yet another addition to that sequence of glories that have added to this university and this seat of learning. Incidentally, in our case, we used to have our first year English classes in Loyola College. So many of the graduates of Loyola at that time also happened to be my contemporaries. And then we would go back to the medical college. It was like that. The arrangements were different because we were at that time Madras was following a British pattern of education. We did change over. Anyway, now coming straight to the subject of the book. And as has been sufficiently elaborated by the other speakers. This is a book, as Annamalai-ji was saying, a reflection of the characters and shades of Prime Minister Modi and the India that he's walked through over the last 20 years. The question is, why Modi at 20? Of course, as was being rightly said by H. Raja-ji, that here we have a person who is possibly the only one in the entire Indian subcontinent, maybe the world, who has consistently been head of the government for 20 years without a break. And an elected head. So I think this is a unique record which will go in the Guinness Book. You wouldn't have any head of the state consistently being the head. First as Chief Minister, the former Chief Minister, then as Prime Minister, and then elected. And therefore, there are 21 chapters in the book written by different persons who have had the opportunity of working with him and also trying to reflect upon the phenomena of Narendra Modi in their own way. For example, you have Sudha Murthy telling us how this is a transformation of India from what it was nearly 25 years ago to the aspirational India that we see today. You have Jai Shankar, was in Son of the Soil, writing a chapter. And otherwise, in one of the informal conversations, he told me that when he was ambassador in China and Modi went there as chief minister, he landed there late in the night. And he wanted to be brief because he said, I'll start my meeting early morning. So it was quite a different kind of experience for them, maybe a shock for them, because the dignitaries who earlier visited never, were found to be that industrious and that hardworking. And now, of course, that is the way of working for the government itself, because Modi is the head, so nobody can afford to be there. You have P.V. Sindhu, as was being mentioned by Anna Malaiji. You have Lata Mangeshkar writing how he has the knack of striking a spontaneous bond. She said the first time I met him, it was like a brother-sister bond happening. And then, of course, you have Nandan Nikhani writing about technology-driven governance. So what I'm saying is that it's, of course, as was being mentioned, I have had the opportunity of being part of his team and having watched him closely, and I could write 8 volumes, rather 20 volumes for 20 years. But having said that, I think this book is also meant for the education institutions, because someday somebody could do a research on this and could do even a PhD on this. So this is more of a case study. It should be taken more of a case study, because, and since I have this bad habit of talking like a teacher because I was paid for talking like that, so I can't get away. This I am saying so because this is actually a case study. It is a case study of a model which has sustained itself for 20 years and continues to sustain in future as well. That is the promise. It's holding. So this is something which requires to be researched, to be studied for the others to follow. Maybe it's a governance model. It's a model of carrying out a government, or in a nutshell, a government model which has 3 aspects which need to be researched into. And I'm sure some of the students there would feel inspired to do so. A model, because nowadays we are very fashionably talking of sustainable goals. You have these SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Those are very fashionable term. Even you and me use it. So this is one of the SDGs in governance. A sustainable goal which has lasted for 20 years and promises to last even in the future. The second research aspect is that it's a model which defines the principle of diminishing returns. Each phenomena is destined to meet the fate of diminishing returns. Even in the married life, you get, not so crazy about each other over the period of time. And of course, in the governments, you have anti-incumbencies, you have so many things, people want a change. Here is a model of governance which has actually defied that principle. And on the contrary, instead of meeting the fate of diminishing returns, the returns have consistently increased. So every election that he went in, he came back with a larger majority. The last one being the largest. So that's again something to be researched into. Why so? Because if it is true, and if it has happened, then possibly there's something to learn from it. And the third is that this is a model which has grown stronger with each generation. Mostly the models, they tend to weaken or crumble when confronted with an obstructionist event or a challenge. And the most notable example is that in Chief Minister soon after it took over, there was an earthquake, a very disastrous earthquake, Bhuj earthquake in Gujarat. And the manner he managed it, it became a kind of a success story for the rest of the world. And as Prime Minister, very recently you have seen the COVID pandemic. When everybody thought India would crumble and India would actually become a risk factor for the rest of the world, with its 135 crore population and heterogeneous from north to south, from up to northeast, it is India alone which survived respectively, while smaller European nations like you see United Kingdom, the manner we paid and they walked. So I think for all these three broad reasons, this is a sermon. Now, as a person, what is it? Because I have also tried to research into these three aspects. So I can leave a cue and you can carry it forward for a thesis. As a person, what were the attributes which helped him to facilitate this model? A, that he has an unquenchable quest to study, great learner. He's never tired of learning. And therefore he becomes I often tell people, more than a prime minister, he's a resource person. So if you are going to meet him with some subject, and of course he knows that you are going to come to him to discuss so and so, he would have, already accustomed himself, acquainted himself, read about it, good enough, not only to interact with you, but leave you at the end of the discussion with some new cues about it. And that is, I think, at least I made a principle for myself to try to learn one new thing every day, even otherwise. But a focused learning of the subject that is at hand immediately is what keeps that going. His long hours of innovation and introspection, he's constantly trying to innovate and play with ideas. That's why you see so many schemes happening. His intimate connect with the ground, which of course is evident. When I say innovation and playing with ideas, I think one of the best examples is this aspirational district. Nobody ever thought we could have something like that. For 70 years we had backward districts. But this was a scientifically designed model. You have over 41 indices. There is health, there is education, there is connectivity, there is accessibility, and depending on one single parameter, a district may be lagging behind. It could be high up on the other parameters. So how best to bring that district at par with the number one district in that parameter in the state, and then these are this number one at the national level. So we have over 750 odd districts. So how scientifically this model was designed with a dashboard time to time changing the rating. So that is only when you are focused and you are concentrating on ideas you get this. Now, what makes him different? I'm talking of certain things which are not there in book, but what I will gather after knowing him or reading him. A, that he has the capacity to take out-of-box decisions. Most of us feel comfortable being status quo because that is a tried course which has sustained my predecessors and which sustained me also. And I think one of the best examples was that soon after this government was sworn in on the 26th of May 2014, one of the earliest decisions that he took was to do away with that dubious practice of getting the certificates attested. And I sometimes wonder why this could not happen earlier. This was a dubious legacy of the British Empire because they didn't want to trust their subjects. They had introduced. And coming from the kind of background that many of us like me come from, the semi-rural background or rural background, when we got into class 9 or class 10, we didn't know where to get the certificate tested from because we didn't have a gazetted officer for miles together from where I lived. And we wondered as small children how we would look with two noses and 4 ears or whatever would be the shape of the gazetted officer. It became such a dream object for us. And I remember when I was in class 11, I had to shut up from PS5 to get my certificates tested because, and I didn't carry that kind of money. Somebody took it for me. Because some good Samaritan came and he said, okay, don't worry, give me all these certificates. By the end of the day, I get them tested to a big man, some officer. So, within, the government came in May, by September this was done. So that is one instance of it. Secondly, of course, the Article 370, which everybody made fun of BJP. H. Rajaji is an old timer, he knows. Whenever BJP was to release the manifesto, the usual gossip and joke would be, we know what is there. They will write Article 370 to be removed and they will not be removed. So, that's so these are two instances I'm giving. Secondly, his capacity to break the taboos of the past. Like for example, just because otherwise I can go for the whole day. You have one of the partners called Space Technology, ISRO, which I am also dealing with. Its headquarters in Bangalore. For 70 years, it was actually functioning behind a veil of secrecy. Nobody was allowed to enter it. In fact, soon after this government came in and Dr. K. Radhakrishnan was the chairman of ISRO, he told me there was a launching going to happen at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he said, look, I'll take you to a place where even my scientists are forbidden, that launching pad. So just about 2 hours before the launching, we went there, and he showed me all the details. Then I told him, I said, Radha, I've made a principle to try to learn one new thing. What I learned today is that to reach this place, either one has to be as world-renowned scientist as you are, or somehow enter politics and become a minister. But then on a serious note, I was wondering why this has been so. And you, at least you are from a different generation, but my generation grew up reading a small remote news in a remote corner with a dateline Sri Harikota. Nobody knew where it is. Some launching would happen. Now, 3 years back, when this was put across it, can you imagine now the space sector has been open to private players, and within 2 years we have 102 startups. Many of the college boys and girls, the youngest one is just about class 11 boy. So that kind of, so which means our young minds and brains, and also the Indians at large, had that kind of potential, they had that kind of capacity. But we had actually made ourselves prisoners of our taboos of the past, and nobody was daring to bell the cat. Now see how, and now I was amazed that even most of the functionaries in NASA, which is the premier institution in USA, are from India. So that is the state of affairs. So this is one example. The third, of course, is his capacity to convert a government campaign into a mass campaign. He speaks about Swachhata from the Red Fort. People don't understand what's it all about. And people are sometimes also amazed. The Prime Minister is Independence Day address making a call to build toilets. Whereas, usually I got used to lofty platitudes by being delivered by the Prime Minister, whoever be the Prime Minister of the Independence Day. Here the Prime Minister was saying, please build toilets, beginning with the toilets from the girls' schools. Within 1 year, we had 4 lakh toilets built. So he was talking of the foundational issues, but his trustworthiness and his commitment to the grassroots sentiment was such that the masses adopted. In my constituency, I had a girl, class 9, she refused going to school. She told her parents that Modi has said from Red Fort that there should be a toilet, so please the toilet over here. When I got to know, I got in touch with the collector. They got a toilet in that house, and then they did a survey. There were 200 such houses in that village which did not have toilet. So masses, there was an 80-year-old lady again in my own constituency who started going around rating which house had a toilet, which did not. So this doesn't happen often because we've seen the government launches a campaign and people don't take it seriously. We've seen the fate of that family planning, hum do, hamare do, whatever, started in 1960. Where is it ended? So that is, but this capacity comes through years and years of credibility building, which happens when you are able to immediately convince your masses about your sincerity and commitment. So people believe that if Modi has said, that means there must be some good for us. And fourth, of course, his futuristic vision, which is reflected in the Startup India. I can remember 2015 Independence Day address, because Swachhata he said in 2014 Independence Day address. Each address was dedicated to some of the foundations. In 2015 he said Startup India, Stand Up India. Many people are asking what does this mean? That today, before 2014, we just had about 350 or 400 startups. Today, it has gone up to 80,000, and the Indian startup ecosystem is rated 3rd in the world. And I was amazed and also very pleasantly impressed Most of the European countries and US, they are preferring Indian boys and girls in the starter course. So, I was in Germany for 2 years, 2 months back. So out of my inquisitiveness, I wanted to find out why Indian boys and girls are preferred. So they gave me a list of reasons. One of them, which would fascinate you was, they said the Indian boys and girls don't take a weekend off. So whereas the white boy will disappear on Friday evening and reappear on the. But that again speaks volumes of the kind of commitment and capacity to work we have. So this, because Modi knew that no government in the world, I think that's also for each one of us to appreciate, no government in the world can provide a salaried government job to each and every individual. Many of us tell a lie during the election. We'll give you so many jobs, we'll give you so many. This doesn't happen. This is mostly the election time, it is said. But yes, a responsible government is consistently devising means to provide livelihood or means which would enable a youngster to earn his or own livelihood. And there comes the startup movement. So it is in the last 7-8 years, India's startup movement is being cited the world over. And we have enormous avenues which were remaining unexplored, which have now got to be explored. And of course, in governance, as I said, the attestation was done away with. The interviews were abolished so that you have a level playing field. A number of reforms also in my own department, which if I go on and on because that will be a separate chapter on governance itself. Pensions, for example, is a lesser known department, not much was talked about it. About 2-3 reforms which I came across, we did that because we knew Prime Minister would support us. Like for example, there was a clause that if a daughter seeks divorce or separation, she will not get the pension or the family pension of her parents unless she gets a judgment from the court. I knew of so many cases, VVIP cases, some of the foreign ministers not being able to get rid, not getting a divorce from the court for 20 years. I said, how would this benefit? So we said, just let the petition happen. If there is an evidence of the petition having been filed, let the daughter get the benefit. Similarly, there was a clause that if a person dies before completing 10 years of government service, his family is not entitled to pension. I said, also, it's such a ridiculous thing. Did you ask him or did you tell him that if he dies, either you give him the choice so that he doesn't die for 10 years. If you have not given him the choice, what right do you have to deprive his family? So we did away. Then there was another clause, for example, that if a person goes missing, and this was a huge problem in Northeast, Kashmir, left violence areas, and from the police background knows that individuals go missing. Sometimes they are discovered, sometimes not discovered, sometimes dead body, sometimes not discovered. So the clause was that either bring the dead body or wait for 7 years. I said that is precisely the time when it is required. So we actually did away with that. Pension was only one. Soon after the government came, I think within 3 months, Prime Minister intervened and we issued an order that the minimum pension would be 1,000. And we were asked to hold programs to launch it in different parts of the country. I was given Chanakyaa. I was there along with the Member of Parliament, Chanakyaa, and we were distributing the checks. You would not believe, an elderly woman came, she fell at our feet, we were so embarrassed, we raised her. She said, no, you won't understand. My husband died 25 years ago. My family pension was just 35 rupees. And for 35 rupees every month, on the first I had to come here. So go back and tell Modi if he had come earlier, the story of my life would have been different. So you can just imagine the plight of that woman. The travelling itself would have cost her 10 rupees. So many of the reforms which have happened in the last 8 years are not only governance reforms, but they are actually social reforms, which were waiting to happen depending upon the contemporary scenario that India is going through. Similarly, the Corruption Act was also changed earlier on. Anybody could lodge a complaint. Now the bribe giver is also equally culpable. So all these reforms, which were actually waiting to happen in the context of the socio-economic scenario that India is going through. Similarly, most of the development works, most of these schemes were oriented not depending on the vote bank consideration, but depending upon the requirement. That Antodaya concept that we have been following, the last man, the last few, the Ujjwala program. Wherever it is required, the gas cylinder will reach. Nobody asks what is your religion, what is your caste, what is your region, and not even that which party did you vote for. So this change of political culture, change of work culture, which has been subtly, unspokenly introduced through Modi's style of working, is something which is not talked about, which is not being realized, but it will happen after a generation. So we leave it to the people's wisdom to decide whether to vote for me or not. But what I do is, I do out of my conscience to reach out to those who require me. So this is something which is, and then from the youth point of view, as I said, next 25 years are going to be of the young startups, young entrepreneurs, and young administrators. And those who have 25 active, energetic years to put in, because when India turns 100, it is you who will have the privilege to celebrate Century India. And you will also have the opportunity and privilege to say that you also contributed to the making of India in 2047. As far as we are concerned, maybe our satisfaction lies in the fact that we should be able to build your capacities for that. And to build the capacities for that, we need to reach out to you so that we are able to lead you in a direction where you can find again sustainable goals of economy. India has vast areas which have been unexplored. Our agriculture area. Now that's a separate lecture on startups. I think I have a link. I'm going to do that also. I'll tell that. For example, in startup, mostly because Madras and Bangalore are the birthplace. Startup has somehow got fixed with IT, electronics. It's not so. It's more to do with innovation. And India's greatest potential is agriculture. So the agri-tech startup. We are starting something like Aroma Mission, lavender cultivation. Boys and girls have made lakhs out of this. Many of them are not even science graduates. Some of them are just school dropouts. So these are the areas which Modi has tried to push in, considering the fact that we have to now dedicate our next 25 years to the building of these boys and girls, and I'm sure in 2047, I don't know how many of us will be around, but those of us are there, will be able to celebrate some of these girls tutored by Dr. Lalita Balakrishnan, who will be doing honors to India in 2046. Thank you once again.